Rev up your engines!
Well, Washington just put a tag on China's cattle that makes all the electric batteries for electric cars, saying that they're tied in with the Chinese military and they should be banned from doing business in the United States. Now, that could greatly affect Tesla because their biggest factories in China, and they use cattle batteries. Now, interesting enough, Tesla is using these cattle batteries, and they're supplying them to Europe and Canada, but not to the United States. They're saying the cattle's a potential security threat because they do stuff with the Chinese military. And it's not just car batteries. They also supply batteries in the United States for storage systems like solar panels, all those things. You can't just run them. If nobody uses the electricity, it's wasted, so you got to store it. And they use these giant cattle batteries in giant buildings to store the electricity. Well, now the government's saying, well, wait a second, we don't know about these people. Cattle supplies 35% of the U.S. electronic storage systems, and they also supply some batteries for electric cars. And government bureaucracies, hey, they always have loopholes. Listen to this. The U.S. Department of Defense on Monday designated cattle as linked to China's military. But the designation does not involve any restriction on cattle's businesses. What is the point of talking about stuff if it doesn't restrict anything? That's the government for you. Blah, 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 blah. And they don't do anything about it except talk. What do they say? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. If they put actual restrictions, it would mean something. But in this case, they're not. We're linking them to this. Oh, and now, of course, all the stock market guys will start quivering. Oh, it's linked to that. Oh, let's make that stock go down, right? That's the problem when government starts getting involved in stuff. They just talk. They don't do anything. They don't know what they're talking about. Meanwhile, the boys in the back room with the money pull the puppet strings of the politicians who blah, 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 and wave the flag. But do they do anything about it? Well, in this case, not really. Well, here's an interesting fact. Stellantis sold over 78,000 dead cars in 2024. Now, I'm not talking about cars you go there and try to start it, it's dead. Although they probably sold a bunch of those too. But they sold in 2024 in the United States 78,000 cars that are no longer being made. They were no longer being made as of 2024, but of course they want to sell the stuff that they have. Now, of course, the biggest ones are the Dodge Challengers and the Dodge Chargers. That was the biggest ones, and they knew they're not making them anymore, and they sold the ones that they had. I feel sorry for people who bought them and thought, this is the last year they made them. They're going to be collector's items. No, they're not going to be collector's items. They still mass produce the stupid things, and they're not going to be really collector's items. These people that think they're going to buy the last of something made and it's going to be worth a fortune in the future are generally extremely depressed later on, unless you're buying a type of car that they only made 500 of them or 300. They're generally worth money as time goes on. But now when they're mass produced like the Chargers and Challengers, then they don't have such a great reputation of holding up over time anyway. So don't go out and buy one just because you think it's the last one they made. It's going to be worth a whole bunch of money, because it probably won't be. Stellantis sold 78,000 dead cars last year to people. I suppose some of them are hoping, oh, they're limited production. We're going to make a fortune selling it later on. Well, all I got to say to that is don't hold your breath, because you're going to asphyxiate before they're worth a whole bunch of money. And they're not making them anymore for good reasons. Well, Sony and Honda are making an electric car. It's going to arrive in mid-2026, and they say it's going to be made in Ohio. Now, Honda's been making cars in Ohio for quite some time. They've made millions of Accords in Ohio that they've sold. So it's a pretty good plant. Now, the interesting thing is it's going to be their first fully electric car that Honda makes. The stuff that they sell now are just rebadged Chevy junk. They had some deal going with Chevy, and they were going to build electric cars all together and share technologies. And I went down the road a few months ago when Honda said, no, we're not building them with them anymore. We're going to build our own. Well, they're going to build with Sony. But here's the thing. I wonder about these companies, right? These Sony Honda Afilas, they're called, are going to start at $102,900. Now, what is it with these companies and expensive electric cars? What do they think? People just have $100,000 to go throw on some stupid electric car, right? They got off on the wrong foot, and they're continuing going off the wrong foot. Tesla starts out with expensive cars. Some people wanted to try them out. Rich people have got more money. They know what to do with it, so they bought the electric cars from Tesla and had all this fancy crap that you really don't don't need in a car, right? So what does Honda do? Oh yeah, let's make a $100,000 one too. Come on. Obviously, they're not going to mass produce them to begin with, because there's no way they're going to be selling a $100,000 car and sell hundreds of thousands of them when they start making them. It just isn't going to cut the mustard, right? Look at Volkswagen. I said over and over, after World War II, Volkswagen made little cars, sold a lot of little cars, worked their way up to bigger cars. You don't start with the big ones. Another $100,000 car. Made in Ohio. They say the range will be about 300 miles. It's pretty crappy range. For that kind of money, you know? Now, they call it an O series, which means that they're going to manufacture them, but the actual vehicle could be quite a bit different than the pictures like there that they have. That's what it's supposed to look like. Who knows if it'll even look like that when they're done. But hey, they're going to make them in Ohio because they're smart, knowing there might be tariffs coming, so they'll make them in the United States. There won't be any tariffs. But the point of making a car that's that expensive, really, Honda, you know, you didn't make your business by selling $100,000 cars. What makes you think you're going to do it now? Well, an Ontario man is really peed off. His car has issues after he bought it for 4 days, and he wants Ontario to have a lemon law. They don't have one. They have sort of one in Quebec, but unlike the United States, they don't have a national lemon law. Now, he made the mistake of buying a 2024 Nissan Altima. I would have said, hey, don't buy that car. Buy anything else. Nissan's been making terrible cars for quite some time. All their front-wheel drive cars basically are terrible. They make pretty good trucks. Their trucks are decent, right? But they're either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Their front-wheel drive vehicles are garbage. Well, he's brought his back 4 times. I can't fix what's wrong with it. But there's no lemon law in Ontario, so he can keep bringing it back. And they don't fix it. You know, he bought the wrong car. There's no arguing that. But people need to have some kind of guarantee that they buy something that's a pile of junk for that kind of money, a car, that should be forced for the company to buy the thing back. I mean, it's only logical. Look, you made a piece of crap. Give the guy's money back. That's your problem. You built a piece of crap, right? Now they've had his car for months at the Nissan dealership. And he said, nothing's been replaced. Nothing's resolved. I keep paying for a vehicle I don't have. He wants the dealership to take it back, give him his money back. But they don't have to in Ontario because there's no law for it. So, hey, you got rid of Justin Trudeau. He's gone. Maybe you can bring in a lemon law now and start cleaning things up in Canada so people don't get ripped off. Well, the government has finally come to some type of recognition of what the framework is for clean hydrogen subsidies. Say hydrogen, of course, it burns cleaner if you put it in a fuel cell. It doesn't do any pollution. But the creation of most hydrogen these days also pollutes itself. 90-something% of the hydrogen in the United States is made from petrochemicals. Realize that oil, crude oil, is nothing but hydrogen and carbon. So there's a lot of hydrogen in it. So you're basically using petrochemicals to make the hydrogen. So they call that dirty hydrogen. They want to use clean hydrogen once it uses wind power, solar power, or, interesting enough, nuke power, because nuke power doesn't pollute much, right? And now they're talking about, well, maybe some of these old nukes that we were thinking about retiring, we won't retire the plant, but instead we'll use it to make clean hydrogen. And now the government's made what they say a framework of what the cleanest ones are. And once they said this, interestingly enough, the stock for nukes, all the companies that are nuclear powered or are building nuclear, their stock prices start going up because they can use the nukes to make clean hydrogen, right? Now, of course, if you really think about it, it's kind of stupid to use a nuke to turn water into hydrogen, then use the hydrogen for energy. When the nukes would already be making electricity, you might as well just have battery electric cars then, and then just charge them up and away you go. Why waste? Every time you use one source of energy to make another, there's a power loss. So you'd lose some making a hydrogen, and a hydrogen going into electricity, there's a little bit of power loss. So even though it's green, you might as well use it direct. Why add a bunch of steps to the process? That's why, as I've explained numerous times, the scientists have explained to me, ethanol, and they use ethanol in our gasoline 10% up to 15%. And if you buy the E85, that's 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. The process of making ethanol is like 20-something% inefficient. They use more energy, and most of it's hydrocarbons, in creating the ethanol from growing corn, moving the corn, distilling the corn into alcohol. Then when we finally use it for gasoline, for powering our vehicles, we've actually spent 20-something% more energy creating it than we ever got burning it. So a lot of that stuff is just plain stupidity. If you're going to make electricity, you might as well just use it direct. Don't use the electricity to then make hydrogen and then use that for powering vehicles. It doesn't make any sense, really. It's not logical at all. But of course, this is a government, and they're not logical at much about anything. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.